Roll for Crit here to talk to you about Monster A.I. from Curse Night Games. This is a role-playing tool that you can use in any given role-playing campaign to automate the monsters, the enemies, any kind of combat that you want during your sessions. The way it works is you will add your player characters as well as any enemies to a deck of cards, and then each turn you'll randomly draw one, and that will determine their initiative. And then you're going to check their stats, which of course include familiar things like their speed, their strength, etc. Again, can be adapted depending on which RPG system that you're using. And based on rules that have been built into this tool, you're going to determine how those enemies are going to behave. So usually it'll say, are they within a certain range of someone? Then they will try to attack them. If they're not, then they're going to try to move. Who they move to can differ depending on their preferences. Some of them may go for someone with the higher HP total, lower HP total, or all kinds of different conditions. They also have their own unique attacks and conditions and special abilities that are included in this module, which has built-in rules for orcs and goblins and some variations thereof, but you can also make your own using this tool set to adapt for different enemies that you create or find elsewhere. We played around a little bit with this in D&D 5e, so we can talk a little bit about that experience. Will, what do you think about, I guess, the idea in general and how you think it played out when we tried it?
I like the idea behind it because it had some really interesting triggers. For example, you mentioned HP and stuff, but there's also like who had the most gold, or did it trigger at the start of the round, which I think adds for a bit more variety. It's not always like, okay, it's always going to be this. There's a much bigger flow chart, so to speak, for each of the creatures. And this is also really helpful when you have, if you're going to do a variety of creatures. Like that way, like if there are some you can think of plenty of reasons like goblins as well as wargs and maybe a troll or something. That way you can sort of make sure they do feel different with how they're fighting, which would sort of make sense for some of them. And I think that's it worked pretty well with there. And plus, it makes things nice if you can do something like so that maybe everyone can play at the table together, or if you want to try solo.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a great tool for if you're just a regular GM playing a regular campaign. You can use this, like you said, to make sure the enemies feel distinct. You don't like fall into a trap of. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you can't come up with, well, what would this enemy do? They're all going to attack this person or that person. This is a nice way to give yourself, even if you don't fully stick to it, you could like have this on the back burner and maybe on the fly you could, not necessarily go with what the rule book tells you to do, but use it as a guide.
You could also help a little bit. At least I noticed it was a bit of a problem when I first started to DM and stuff. Would be like, I feel like I should go for this person, but that's a little mean. But then if you just spread it out, it's a little too easy. This way you don't have to feel like they don't look. I'm just doing how the card acts. This is just how the creature. I'm not being mean to you.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. They compare this in the notes of the rule book to experiences like Final Fantasy Tactics. They say like it'll probably make your games feel a little more in that kind of tactical grid-based combat, although you can adapt it for even Theater of the Mind too if you'd like to. But did you feel any of that? Did you feel like it felt like do you think if I didn't tell you I was using this, you would notice?
I think when we first started using it, it definitely felt like that because, it's the first time you're like, all right, it's not even saying most gold. It's more like, all right, most gold, I moved 5. It's because we're just starting to get used to it. But like, if you really learned how to master it, you could just you could be like, let's stick with the gold one for something weird, like, because I think if I remember that was like a goblin thief.
Correct.
Like the goblin thief looks around and notices your robes and everything, just tells you you're a great mark. You can add that story flair in it to make it feel more of that, as you said, theater of the mind kind of.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's true. I think that's accurate. Another one, you were also comparing it to sort of the way Gloomhaven works.
Madara, where they have a really big flow chart of like, if this creature is within 5 spaces, attacks this person. If not, move 3 or something.
which I think it's smart. It's smart to add an option like that to the game. You can get this. It's a PDF. We'll put links in the description. It's $5 for the PDF, and that includes some cards that you can print out or sign some blank ones so you can kind of make your own and adjust. But if you're a player, a GM who does a lot of D&D and you want something to maybe make your combat a little easier or mix things up a little bit, or like we were saying, you could do this as a solo play just for fun, or fully co-op with people so you don't even have a GM. I think for $5 it's definitely worth the money. I think that's a good price for it.
We keep bringing up the GM, but for players it could be rewarding too, in the sense not like memorizing, like it feels boring, but like when you take games like Dark Souls or Monster Hunter, you sort of feel really good when you start recognizing the patterns and how to react to that. So let's say, like going back to your Goblin Thief, he likely will go for whoever has the most. You could be like, all right, you should stand 20 feet back because then he's going to run to you and we can set a trap.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that one of the great things about RPGs is the improvisation and the spontaneity, but there's also can be comfort and fun in knowing like, oh, I know this enemy, I know what they're gonna do. So yeah, and like you said, learning those patterns. Well, again, it's called Monster AI, and we will put it in that description if you want to check it out. If you play RPGs, I think it's neat. And right now, it's something that you can play online pretty easily with other people that aren't in the same room as you. Let us know what you think in the comments if you've tried this one out, or if you're interested in it, or if there are any other RPG modules like this one or tools that you would recommend. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
And this has been Roll for Crit.
If you love board game content, do us a favor, like and subscribe, and support us on Patreon.
Keep watching our content to guarantee you'll top deck a good video.